evening. It is such a pleasure to be with you tonight for the June event of Library Lovers. Now, have you ever wondered what it feels like to have 4 million books sold and to be on the Queen's Honour List? Are you looking at your winter garden perhaps and wondering what you need for a beautiful spring crop of veggies and blooms? Or what about the relationship between libraries and their marketing? Well, you are in the right place because tonight's guests are going to share all of that and much more. I'm your host, Linnell. Now, I'm a journalist, I'm an author with Allen and Unwin, and as well as being a lifelong library lover myself, it gives me great joy to be chatting with you tonight and our very special guests about all things writing, baking, and gardening, plus the magic of libraries. Now, remember, this is an interactive event, and as much as I love peppering our guests with all the questions that I want to ask, we've also got plenty of time for you to ask questions yourself of the guests. So if you have a question for Adele Parks or Phil Dudman or Hannah from Redland Libraries, then put them in the chat function and we will get to them throughout the event. So I love to hear where you're tuning into from tonight, what you've got growing in your garden, what you're baking in your kitchen, what books you're reading, and any burning questions that you'd like to ask our guests. So make yourself comfy and we will dive right in. Now, our first superstar guest tonight, Adele Parks, was born in North Yorkshire, and she's always dreamed of being a writer. She's sold over 4 million copies of her UK editions and been translated into 31 different languages. And as well as writing, she's very passionate about supporting charities that promote literacy, and that Her Majesty the Queen also gave Adele an honour of an MBE for services to literature in the New Year's Honours List 2022. Wow. I hope you're as excited as we are about having Adele on the show tonight. Welcome, Adele. It's so lovely to have you on Library Lovers.
Hello, I'm just so glad the tech worked. Brilliant, clever woman to get that all organised. Well done.
That's wonderful. Now, one last secret hits the shelves in Australia today. Is that right, Adele?
It does, which is before anybody else. I'm launching, the last 2 or 3 books I've launched in Australia just a few weeks before even in the UK, and about 6 months before North America. So it's really good fun. You're my test case to see what you think about it. So yeah.
Well, that is wonderful. We like to think that we're quite ahead and progressive here in Australia. So I'd like to take the credit for that we're first.
Exactly. And especially with this, I mean, you are ahead and progressive in so many ways. And actually this book will need that, as I'm sure, we'll talk about. But my heroine is a little bit different to usual heroines. She's because she's a high-end escort, she's a sex worker. And normally in psychological thrillers, sex workers are sort of the bodies in the background. They might be found dead in an alleyway, or they might at best be sort of some seedy hole in the wall kind of pub, but they're not kind of named and they don't have a voice. And I wanted to twist things on its head a little bit for this psychological thriller. But yes, I think people are going to have to gird their loins when it comes to accepting quite a different heroine.
I think so. And look, it's a beautiful cover right from the start. It's got that real gripping, you want to take it on a holiday with you and read it. It makes you think of luxury, of glamour, and it's everything, isn't it? It's provocative, it's glamorous, it's twisty, and it certainly is a different main character to what we're often used to reading as well. Can you give readers a little bit more detail, Adele, about what they'll expect when they pick up One Last Secret?
Yeah, well, it's lovely that you say it's glamorous and it's the kind of book you want to dive into or take on your holidays, because in fact, I wrote this in one of our many lockdowns. I've actually written 2 novels during the 2 years of lockdown, but the first one, I kind of stayed in the UK and stayed within lockdown parameters. But this one, I was so fed up, like everybody, of my own surroundings. I decided to take my readers somewhere completely different. So it's set in the south of France, in a beautiful, incredibly luxurious chateau. And Dora, who is the heroine of the novel, as I mentioned, she's a high-end escort. She's decided that her work is precarious. It's hideously dangerous, actually. And she mixes with incredibly ambitious and ruthless people. And after a particularly frightening incident, she's decided to give it all up and finally start afresh with somebody who truly does love her. And that's the plan. But I guess, like many sex workers, she does have a little bit of a tendency towards self-destruct, and she takes this one last job in this beautiful chateau, thinking it's going to be a relatively simple companion job, actually, not even anything sort of more deeper than that, shall we say. But in fact, it's anything but. And even though she's in this beautiful chateau and this beautiful surrounding, I think the most important thing about the geography, the location, is that it's isolated, and isolation is incredibly important for a psychological thriller. And all the action takes place in just a few days, so it's very tense seeing what sort of happens in the last few days of this woman's career.
It was very tense. I had my fingernails were quite short by the end because it really had me hooked right from that first page. And I sit there chewing on my nails when there's something that's really a bit scary. And I had certain sections, Adele, where it was like when you're watching a horror movie and you're yelling at the screen, you go, don't do that.
Don't open that door. Don't walk into that room. Yeah, she's furious, isn't she? I mean, I think when I'm writing that kind of heroine, and I know that I'm going to put her in positions and make her do things that my readers will be sort of saying, that's not sensible. But the truth is, this character isn't like the rest of us. I quite often do write about very, very ordinary people, and I put them in extraordinary circumstances. I don't think Dora is an ordinary person. She set off that way many years ago, and we do get her backstory. But circumstances have been such that she has been propelled out to a position that is extraordinary, and she does perhaps think in a little bit of a different way to the way we would think. I certainly wouldn't have taken this one last job, and not if I had the level of secrets she's harboring. Stay at home, stay safe, but that's just not in her nature. And I guess I hope that's what's exciting as a reader. You're going to be taken places where you don't want to go, you wouldn't go in your own life, but it is actually very compelling to put yourself there via a book. That's what we do with books. We go on journeys that end as journeys into other people's lives.
Yes, we certainly do. I think that is the best thing about books. Now we've got Nicole is tuning in from Brisbane in Queensland. We've got Julie who's tuning in from Beachport, South Australia. We've also got Peter coming to us from Cool Reservoir in Victoria. So thank you everyone for tuning in so far. It's lovely to see where you're coming from tonight. And Adele, whereabouts are you based? You're in the UK. Can you describe to us where you're speaking to us from tonight?
Yeah, I'm so excited when I hear those names of those such glamorous cities. I have visited Australia a few times. I have a niece who lives in Perth, and I've got really good friends in Sydney. And an aunt actually in Brisbane. But hearing those cities, I'm just like, I want to be there. I actually am here in Surrey, which is a county very close to London. So I'm only a sort of 35-minute commute on the train from London. So far down in the south of Britain. It's a rare, super sunny day today. This is my office. We built our own house, which actually I think is a relatively popular thing to do in Australia. It's a relatively unusual thing to do in the UK. And I think it's got a bit of an Australian vibe, actually, because it's very sort of white and modern, sort of Australian or LA, that kind of look. And one of the things I did specify was that I would have my own office in this house, which is really a converted bedroom. But facing me, you can't see it, but facing me is a whole wall of windows. And quite often I'm always looking out into my garden. Quite often I'm looking out onto a very wet, sludgy garden. Today I'm looking out at a beautiful green and sunny garden. So yeah, I couldn't feel happier. And of course, it's my morning. You are time traveling. You've all had today. I'm just starting my today.
That's wonderful. And we are so very pleased to have you as our guest. We actually have a few more things in common, Adele. We built our own house as well. And my office here where I write looks over the gardens too. So I can see it's a beautiful place to write, isn't it? When you can just look at the beautiful flowers and the lawns.
Yeah. My husband's, he also works from home, and he took the front office, and he loves like watching the neighbours and the postman, and he does all the kind of running downstairs and getting the deliveries and things. I love looking just into my own private garden and being able to just go into my own head. It's very soothing, as I say, private, and it just allows me that mental space that you need when you're writing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's perfect scenery for daydreaming and getting into the story. Lovely. We've got Ben Hobson, who actually hosts Ben's Book Club, which is an event also put on through the Libby Overdrive app, which is coming up soon. He's tuning in from Brisbane today. We've got Gloria tuning in from Jamberoo in New South Wales, a rural village surrounded by cows. Nicole's saying it was a foggy morning up in Brisbane, so that sounds like pretty nice weather. Mary Lou's from the Sunshine Coast, growing lots of ginger and turmeric and baking apple tarts, both sweet and savoury. Now, Mary Lou's a fantastic author too. She does historical stories, and most recent one was set in an apple orchard in Tasmania, which is lovely. And Edith is also tuning in from Cairns in Queensland. So lots of wonderful people that love books and gardening and baking as much as we do. So thank you for joining us, folks. Nicole's got a question for you, Adele. She would like to know whether you talked to some high-end sex workers in real life to write about your characters, because I think that's a wonderful thing to find out what type of research you've done to really get into Dora's shoes for the story.
Yeah, I did, because I do talk to every book. I've written 22 books in 22 years, and character is incredibly important to me, and getting those details nailed. So early in my career, I used to shadow people, and I've worked as a florist, I've shadowed teachers, I worked in TV, because that's what my characters were doing. And I was absolutely determined that this would be no different. Although I have to say, I didn't shadow just before anyone asked. I don't do much shadowing now. As my career's moved on, people find that a bit more uncomfortable because they feel exposed. But I certainly interviewed a number of sex workers, and I always say, it was really, people go, was that difficult? I was like, no, it was really easy, because they love being paid to talk about sex way more than they love being paid to actually have sex. So in fact, I was giving them, a really easy job. But what was frightening is how simple it was for me to get in touch with sex workers. And also I discovered a lot of the laws that, I don't know how they work in Australia, but in the UK where the book's set, the laws are really stacked against the sex workers and pro the people who use the sex workers, which just seems so unfair. And one of the things I wanted to do in this book is give people who are marginalized and lacking in power some level of a platform, because it would be terrific if I was in government and I could change the laws here. I can't, but perhaps I could change some mindsets. These women were women who do a job, they do, and I did only actually speak to women, although obviously sex workers aren't exclusively women, the vast majority are. They do a job, and sometimes it's really, really unpleasant. I'm certain most of us, if we had a choice, probably this wouldn't be our choice. But mostly the women I met were practical, resourceful, resilient, self-aware, really good company a lot of the time. And so I think that's important, that we don't think of them as other. They're other women. That's all we are. They're just other women doing jobs. And actually Dora, in my novel, she makes the point that many of us do jobs we don't particularly enjoy, but that's kind of being an adult. You suck it up because we've got rents to pay. And actually she makes the point there's usually a pub that sells a really average Chardonnay that has a law, which I think is quite funny. And it was a line that did come from one of the sex workers that I talked to.
Well, I loved how it really changed my challenged my perceptions on the occupation and the way that we do think of it. And I did really like that emphasis on the fact that these are ladies that are just getting by and doing what they need to do to put food on the table, and that's their choice, and it's certainly a valid one and a very well-known and time-worn path, isn't it?
Absolutely, time immemorial, isn't it? It's been around forever. I just think it could be done more safely. And then perhaps if it was legalized, or if it was made safer, then there wouldn't be as much horror attached to it, because there is a lot of horror attached to it for these women. It isn't Disneyland.
No, absolutely not. And I can also imagine that writing thrillers like this can lead you to some very interesting research rabbit holes. Have you fallen down some? Can you tell us some of the interesting or perhaps most unusual things that you've found in your research, Adele?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because I used to write, I started my career writing romantic comedies, and I have written historical novels. And I am finding, if I'm honest with myself, writing psychological thrillers is significantly more disturbing as a human being. Because, you know, you start searching on the internet. I mean, honestly, if there was ever a crime in Surrey and my internet browser was checked, I think I'd be #1 prime suspect, because my internet browser is really frightening. But not that I'm sort of on the dark web, I'm far from that yet, but I certainly know more than I would like to know about crime, because I have to for the job, and about how some people's minds work and how criminals can get access to the things they need to commit their crimes, whether that's drugs or, you know, weapons or whatever that might be. And that's not great. Some more sort of just fun, because, you know, we don't want to go down too heavier topics, but just a fun one. In the UK, we used to have these red telephone boxes I'm sure you're all aware of, and they're quite famous, and people, like tourists, love having their photos taken in these red telephone boxes. And most of those are out of use now because we all have mobiles, and many have been converted over to little mini libraries, which I know you would love. In fact, I might try and send you some pictures and you could share another month, but they're fabulous. But before this, sex workers used to put their business cards in these telephone boxes, because men who didn't want to make those phone calls from home would go out to these boxes and see the cards and ring these women. But it's actually a public nuisance, and you can get arrested just for putting your card in these boxes, because it's called soliciting. You are absolutely allowed to put your library books in there though, so that's fine.
Oh, that's fantastic. I can certainly imagine all the tourists getting a bit of a surprise when they're going to take a nice happy snap and out falls a heap of different business cards for escorts.
And the business cards are usually quite graphic and have a photo attached, so, you know, nothing left to the imagination.
No. Oh, wonderful. Look, we've got some wonderful questions coming through, and I will certainly get to them in a minute, because it is fantastic to see the amount of interest in your writing routine, Adele, and things like that as well. But firstly, I wanted to ask, now, I heard this wonderful interview with you and Daisy Buchanan on her podcast. I think it's called You're Booked. Is that right? You're Booked. And I just loved the story of how you came across libraries and what an important role libraries played in your life, Adele. Can you, for the audience that's tuning in tonight, share that story? Because it just absolutely warmed my heart as I was out for a 6 a.m. walk in the freezing cold on the beach, listening to this beautiful interview with you. And I thought, this is the perfect person I need to have on Library Lovers.
Oh, well, thank you for the invite. Thanks for asking me. But yeah, libraries were always a huge part of our lives. I grew up in the northeast of England, and we weren't a particularly well-off family at all. And libraries are free, so that's a great thing. I have this one sister, and she's 3 years older than I am. And so it was very much the norm that while she was still finishing up school, I would wait in the library, or maybe she was at, you know, a club, and I would wait in the library. And then my mum would collect the two of us so she didn't have two journeys. So every night I would take home, when I was very little, maybe 3 picture books, and I would read them that night and return them. And as I got a little bit older, started reading books with more words in. And it was actually a librarian that turned around and said to me, when I can't remember exactly, I think I was probably 7, but turned around and said to me, do you think one day, Adele, you might want to be an author? Because I've never met a little girl who reads as much as you do. And I was really cross because I didn't understand the word author, and I was quite wordy and swatty. So I had to say, and it is always a good thing to say, I don't know what that means. And she said, oh, hang on. I mean a writer, but hang on. And she dashed off. In fact, I can recreate the moment because because she dashed off and went, this is one of my childhood books. It's an Enid Blyton one. And she went off and got an Enid Blyton book and pointed out to me that Enid Blyton kind of signs her signature across the top of books. And she said to me, you see, Enid Blyton is this woman and she sits at home and she writes these books for you. And for many years, I actually thought Enid Blyton was literally sat at home writing books for me. But also it kind of gave me the first inkling that this physical book that was in my hand had originally come from somebody's head. And I've just always thought libraries were this amazing sort of airport. Even before I'd even visited an airport, I'd seen them on TV and I understood that you went to an airport if you're going on a journey. And I remember saying to my friends and family, and I think to this librarian, it's like being in an airport. You're going to go on journeys and you don't know where you land. When you pick up a book, you don't know where you land. You don't know where the author's going to take you. And it just seemed magical. I wasn't an especially happy child. I didn't really like school. I loved being an adult. So the fact that books could transport me just meant so much to me. And yeah, so that was the first time the idea was suggested to me, and that it seemed like a great idea. And I, from that moment on, told everyone I wanted to be not just a writer, but an author. I loved the word, and the way only authors and readers do love particular words, I think.
Absolutely. That is such a beautiful story, Adele. I love it. I think it's wonderful. Now, I know you get sent lots of books as well. Can you give us some recommendations of some Aussie authors that you've enjoyed reading recently?
I mean, I am a staunch, huge fan of Sally Hepworth. I would read anything Sally ever sent me. I remember discovering her books about 4 or 5 years ago and literally thinking, and this sounds so vain, I remember thinking, oh, this is brilliant. It's like reading a book I've written, but I don't know what's going to happen. By which I mean, I think Sally and we write psychological thrillers, but we also write a lot about emotions and a lot about the characters. So some psychological thrillers don't do that. They're very plot driven, or you get books that are more dramas and they're very character driven. And we both sort of walk this line. And I love Sally's books. I'm a big fan. I'm currently reading this book by Kylie Orr. It's a debut, and I'm very excited. Someone else's child, and so far I'm only about this far through. You can see where my bookmark is, but I'm loving it. And it's kind of frustrating when you've got launch and you're busy and you've just picked up a good book because you want to just keep reading the good book. And actually, I did a library tour in the Sydney area in 2019 with a wonderful author, Vanessa McCausland. I don't know if I've pronounced that. How do I pronounce Vanessa's surname? But yes, her latest. There we go, McCausland. Yeah, we pronounce it slightly differently, but Vanessa was a terrific human being and a terrific writer. And I started reading her work then and have been reading since. So there's 3 very strong recommendations of Aussie writers. Here in the UK, I get sent piles. In fact, you can see behind me, many of those books are my books, international copies, except in that top shelf I'm pointing to now. That's what I've been sent this month.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm clearly going to struggle with. But I have a column in a glossy monthly magazine, so I pick 6 a month to promote here in the UK. So yeah, there's that too.
Oh, fantastic. Now we've got a minute and a half to get a quick question in. We've got Lou from Mudgee in New South Wales, country in New South Wales. She's tuning in tonight. Hello, Lou. And she wants to know about how you went from writing more relationship-based novels to your more recent psychological thrillers. Are you able to encapsulate that briefly?
I can. I mean, the process is the same. I still write 1,000 to 2,000 words a day. I prefer to write in the morning because that's when I'm most creative. But what happened is I wrote a lot of relationship novels, but I had these couple of stories that I really wanted to tell that was set around World War I. One about the spare brides, the women that were brought up to think they were going to marry, and then we were a million men down in the UK post World War I of marrying age, and so these women had to go and find careers. Silver lining, it was the beginning of feminism for us, fantastic, but horrific for the men that they'd lost. And I had that story to tell. And then the other was about a conscientious objector in World War I. Once I had written both of those stories, and I researched them for 4 years while I was writing other books, and they really stole my heart. In fact, you'll see around me, there's a lot of 1920s paraphernalia in my house. I couldn't really go back to just talking about a one boy-girl relationship. It just felt light for me after having these huge moments in history and in time. And I just kind of snuck into something a little bit darker, but found it fun. And I hope you can tell, quite a chirpy, positive human being. So playing at writing very dark people and writing villains, I suddenly discovered to be great fun. Exercise, probably something that is very, very, very deeply, and long may it continue to be very, very deeply, but a lot of fun to go there with my psychological thrillers. And I found enormous success. I mean, all the way along the 22 years now it is. I've been lucky enough to be Times top 10 bestsellers, but it was only when I started writing psychological thrillers that I hit that number one position. And I was 19 years into my career. So I think that was a sign that I'd finally hit my stride, that writing for, I think also opening it up for male and female genders, because generally speaking, men don't read female writers' relationship books, but they will read psychological thrillers by women. Women read both genders, we don't really care.
That's right. Wonderful. Well, it's been lovely chatting to you, Adele, and people can find a copy of One Last Secret at their favourite local bookstore, or they can find it online through their Libby app, or they can ask their local library to order it in. So where can people follow you, Adele, online? Do you like Instagram or Facebook?
I do all. I do Facebook, and Instagram and Twitter. Twitter tends to just kind of go, here, I'm doing this event. Facebook, I chat a lot. If you talk to me, I will talk back, and it's fantastic. And the same with Instagram, and Instagram gives you a bit of an insight into my life. It's very visual, obviously. I'm not really TikTok, funnily enough, just missed that. But I do reels and I have fun with it, and I love hearing from my readers. So please pile in and come and say hi.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for being our guest, Adele. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's been lovely. I just wish I was there with you. Although at the moment we do have the sunshine.
Lovely. Thank you, Adele. Now, our next guest tonight is Phil Dudman. Phil is the horticultural editor of Gardening Australia magazine. He's a gardening talkback host on ABC Radio. He's a TV presenter and author for ABC Books. A trained horticulturalist and a designer, Phil's true passion is organic gardening and teaching people simple ways how to grow their own food. Where are you speaking to us from tonight, Phil? Welcome.
G'day, Maya. G'day, everyone. I'm speaking to you from downtown Lismore in northern New South Wales.
Wonderful. Well, we're very pleased to have you on the show. We had a great time with Jenny on the very first Library Lovers in March, and it was so neat to get a bit of an insight into the magazine and find out more of what goes on behind the scenes. So would you be able to, Phil, tell us briefly how you came to your role at Gardening Australia magazine?
Yeah, well, I've been a gardening writer now for probably 20 years or maybe a little bit more, and I've been contributing to the magazine for many years. And then about 7 years ago, the magazine changed hands. So we went to a new publisher, and I was approached to see if I'd be interested in the role, and I said yes.
Fantastic. Well, I think they've lucked out there. I think that's worked out very well for everyone.
Oh, thank you. Look, it's really a lovely magazine to be involved with, and to be editing, part of the editing team is an absolute joy. It really is.
Wonderful. Now, I really enjoyed the June edition, and I particularly liked the story about naughty chooks, because from where I'm sitting at the moment, just over here is my chook house, and I can see every time those naughty little hens make a jailbreak. So I quite like that. Do you have a favourite article from last month's edition?
Oh, well, I've moved on, I must say, May. I've moved on because the latest issue is out now. So we've got this one here with the strawberries on the cover. And I did choose a story that I really like, and it's this one here. It's titled Keep Calm and Carry On Gardening, and it's written by one of our regular writers, Michael McCoy. And it discusses the fact that the very act of gardening, breaking the soil, planting something, planting anything helps to stimulate a diverse ecosystem, right? So for me, it just really reinforces the fact that, one of the great things in gardening, when you are gardening, you hook into something that's so big and beautiful. And what I mean here is the natural world, and the contribution that you make, even if it's a tiny one, just growing a few things out on a balcony, it's a really important one. So it's one of the things I love about being a gardener.
I agree, Phil. And I think that simple act of sinking your hands into the soil, having the dirt run between your fingertips, planting something and believing in the promise of a better season ahead, I think that is absolutely magic.
Yeah, look, I can't get enough of it. I'm totally hooked. And, if I'm not gardening, I'm thinking about it. It's just such a part of my life, and it's a dream really to be involved with a magazine and writing about it. So gardening just sort of is 24/7 for me. It's wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful. Now I look out into my garden at the moment, and all my most of my roses are dormant. My dahlias have all tuckered down for winter to just do their little hibernation thing. There's not too many flowers. There's a few veggies and herbs and things like that straggling along. Would you be able to give us some tips for people going into winter thinking, oh, there's nothing in the garden, there's nothing to do? But you and I both know that's a bit of a furphy, isn't it? Have you got any ideas on how people can make sure they've got some good things to do in the garden and to look forward to spring?
Absolutely. I think what I like to do in the winter time is set aside some of the heavier jobs that you might find a bit hard to do in the hotter months of the year. So paving, creating pathways, building retaining walls, building new beds. So if you're planning on a new area of the garden you want to develop, if you've got veggie gardens that you want to put in, this is the time to get physical and really do some of that heavier work. If you've got trees that need pruning, doing some of the heavier pruning this time of year is good. Not only because it's a cooler job, but trees are less likely to be stressed by losing a couple of large limbs. So it's a good time to take put some of that work into action. But really, I think if you've got a sunny day and it's winter and you've got that opportunity to just get out there and feel the warmth, get a little bit of sun on your skin, just get out there and potter around. You start pulling a few weeds, you find something over there that needs a bit of trimming, you think something over here might need a bit of feeding or watering. Before you know it, it's the end of the day and you've had a fantastic time just losing yourself in the garden. And I think winter is one of the best times for that.
Oh, lovely. I agree. And it gets you warm. It gets you out there and doing it. If you're out there pulling a few weeds and tossing them to the chickens, which is, one of the things that I can always find time for in a day, to give those chickens some greens, it certainly keeps you warm too, doesn't it?
Oh, it sure does. Yeah, just keep your body moving, and it's good exercise. It's light. It's not too taxing on your body. You don't need a gym membership. You just need a garden.
Wonderful. Now, Nicole West from Brisbane has said her life balance is books, gardening and crafts are her go-to, which is wonderful. I like that, Nicole. Now, we've got a question from Mary Lou up in the Sunshine Coast, and she's wondering how Lismore Library is going post-floods. I know there was a big amount of people that were donating books towards that. Have you heard anything on that front?
Yes, look, the flood in Lismore was very widespread, and the library is in the CBD, and the level of water was much higher than any flood we've ever seen before, 1.5 to 2 meters higher. So it went into buildings like the library on some of those upper levels there, and we lost so much. So yes, we have been depending on donations from other libraries, and you know, when things like this happen, people rally around and they get in, and they make things happen. So it's slow progress in a lot of areas, but you know, we're confident that we will restore, and we'll be back in business.
Wonderful. Now, tell me what's been happening in your garden at the moment. I don't suppose you've been out there in the veggie patch bringing up anything special?
Ha! Well, look, I just so happened to have brought something very special. And it's this. I can't wait to show you. It's a bloomin' leek. Check it out.
Oh, it's a
I have got
leek.
stacks of these. I've got stacks of these coming on in my garden at the moment. And I don't know, what are you paying for a leek at the moment? I don't go to the veggie shop very often because I grow so much of my own food, but you know, $3 or $4 a leek, maybe more. And a packet of seed costs $3.50, and you probably got 100 or more leeks in it. You know, that's a good investment, don't you reckon? You know, I reckon even Gina Reinhardt would be onto something like that. If she's not investing in lettuces, it'll definitely be in leeks. And they're so easy to grow. You know, I've kept these going for months. So there's heaps coming on at the moment, but I've got lots of brassicas, cabbages, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, all those sorts of things. English spinach, onion, and of course garlic, just growing beautifully in the garden at the moment. It's a wonderful season for growing veg, without a doubt.
It is. You can't get too much garlic this time of the year, but all those lurgies hanging about.
Yeah, well, we managed to grow all the garlic that we eat for the year. So it's probably one of the easiest crops I find to be self-reliant in. You know, if you imagine, say, okay, if you think, how many bulbs of garlic do I eat a year? If you have 1 or 2 a week, and then you've planted, say, you know, 150 cloves of garlic, you can easily grow your entire garlic needs. So to grow 150 bulbs of garlic, you really only need a space that's about 1 or 2 square meters. So yeah, it's very easy to become reliant on it, but you've got to be onto it. So planting time is normally in March, April, May. So you don't want to miss out on an opportunity, that's for sure.
So is it too late to plant the garlic now, Phil?
In most areas of the country, it's getting to that point. Yeah, really, it's that early autumn period, which is ideal for getting the crop in. Yeah. Don't get him away when it's autumn. It's like, I've got to get my garlic in, and I get anxious until it starts popping up, and it always does. But it's one of those crops I'm totally fanatical about.
Wonderful. Well, Ben from Queensland says garlic makes everything better. I agree. Now, one other thing I think makes everything better is some fresh flowers. And today I was out in the garden quickly doing a whip around before a magazine photo shoot, and I got these beautiful, these are the thank you rose. So it's a purpley, pinky, velvety colour, and normally this time of year my roses have all finished, but I was very pleased to pick these today, and they've been battered by the wind, absolutely hammered, and it's amazing the petals aren't all annihilated, but aren't they pretty?
They're absolutely gorgeous. I'm very impressed, May. You're quite a green thumb.
I love my garden. I've got over 100 roses, and I usually have over 100 dahlias as well. And then, you know, there's about 2 acres of garden here, so lots to keep me busy.
Where do you find the time?
Now, I also love talking about books, Phil. Can you tell us, please, what's something that you've read recently that you can recommend?
I've got something here, and I've got to say, if you're a budding gardener, check out this book here. It's called The Good Life, How to Grow a Better World, and it's by Hannah Maloney. Now, viewers to Gardening Australia TV would know Hannah. She's been on the show now for a couple of years, and she's a regular contributor to our magazine as well. And this is her first book. It's sold very well. But, you know, she addresses some big issues in this book. So, of course, things like climate change and environmental destruction, and offers a lot of very practical solutions that we can all play a part in. And it's all based around living sustainably, reducing your imprint on the planet, and gardening. And she does it all in a very, very friendly way. Hannah's very special. So check out this book. Check out her stories in the Gardening Australia magazine. You're going to be seeing a lot more Hannah in the future. She's an absolute delight.
Wonderful.
So
that's
my
a
pick.
good thing. What a great choice. Thank you, Phil. Now we've got a question as well from Colleen, and she is hoping that you might be able to share your recipe for getting rid of aphids on broccoli. They're nasty little critters, aren't they?
Yeah, there are lots of different aphids around. You'd know them well on your roses, I guess, Maya. And, you know, if you've got them on your roses, a quick little spray with a sharp spray of a hose is probably the easiest way to get rid of them. But in broccoli and cabbages and that type of thing, it's a really persistent aphid that gets in there, and often you don't notice them until you see your plants are starting to look a bit sad. Your broccoli is growing beautifully, and suddenly it looks like it's really struggling to find the energy that it needs, and that's because these particular insects are sap sucking, so they are sucking all the energy out of the plant. So you've got to get down to where they are and have a look down at on the lower leaves and in the little crevices that are down where the leaves are attached to the main stem. That's where you'll find them often. And if you've got some older leaves, just pick them off, get rid of them. So you're taking away the older leaves that have got the insects on. And then look at the younger leaves that are left behind. I would say the best thing to reduce the population there is to spray with a soap spray. That's probably one of the mildest control measures, but they work very, very well on aphids. So you can buy soap sprays or horticultural soap sprays at your garden centre, or you can just mix up, say, a teaspoon of liquid soap in a litre of water, give it a good shake, spray it on, and that'll do the job as well.
So by liquid soap, do you mean the washing up liquid that you use for the dishes, or more like the soft soap that you use?
A hand soap.
Hand soap.
A hand soap. It's a little bit more gentle, yeah.
Lovely. Okay, thank you, Phil. Colleen, I hope that helps you, and I hope your broccoli is safe to eat. I remember lots of homegrown broccoli. You put it in the saucepan, and then these little caterpillars float to the surface, and you have to quickly get rid of them before the children see, because it's hard enough getting them to eat the broccoli, let alone when there's little floaties in there as well.
Yeah, look, and they get stuck in your teeth, so you want to get rid of them. And you want to watch out. You want to watch out for slugs as well. They seem to love all the brassicas. So yes, good idea to give things a good wash. But the great thing about broccoli is that once you've taken that head out of the center, you just get loads of side shoots, and it can last for months. One of my favorite crops. Yes, wonderful. And they do go to seed beautifully as well. We've got a prolific purple broccoli that just seeds and seeds and seeds happily. Oh yeah, and once they're flowering, the bees come in and you get loads of them. So yeah, it's good to let a few things go to flower in the patch. It really helps to create a bit of action. Yes, absolutely. Now, can you tell us the best way for people to get in touch with the magazine, Phil, or interact? Is social media a really good way for people to get in touch, or to call into your ABC radio segment, or how should they do that? Yeah, look, I think the best way to check out how to get in touch with us is just simply grab a copy of the magazine. All the details are in there. Or you can head to our website, which is gardeningaustralia.com.au. That's probably the easiest one to remember. You will find us on Facebook and Instagram as well. So plenty of options there. Wonderful. And do you love it when people tag you of photos of their garden and they use the hashtag Gardening Australia magazine? Because I know that I quite like to do that myself when there's a nice photo going on. Yeah. Well, we'd love to see some of your roses, Maya. Yeah, that's always a good idea because we do have a mailbox section in the magazine. We like to feature some of the beautiful images from our readers. So yes, please do tag us. We'd love to check out what you've got.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Phil, and hopefully we'll speak to you in 6 months' time when we're looking at summer gardening.
Thank you so much, Maya, and have a good evening, everyone. Happy gardening.
Lovely. Now, our final guest tonight, we have Hannah Bolsh from Redland Libraries in Queensland. So Hannah is the marketing coordinator for Redland City Council Libraries, and she takes care of all the print and e-media. She also works closely with the branches to create engaging and innovative library content. Hannah is passionate about promoting lifelong literacy, music, local cafes, and dried flowers are also her passions. And she loves nothing more than a great escape to the beach with an even greater book. Now, I can get on board with that. Welcome, Hannah, to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And so, Hannah, for those of us who are unfamiliar with Queensland, can you tell us a little bit about the area that Redland Libraries encompasses, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are roughly a 500 square kilometre region in southeast Queensland. So if you know where Brisbane is, you're pretty close. Just keep heading east towards the water and you'll find Redland's coast. That's us. We encompass a couple of suburbs on the eastern bay, as well as our southern Moreton Bay Islands like Stradbroke.
What a great place to work and live.
Yeah, absolutely. We have 3 mainland libraries, and we've even got a couple on the islands too. They do weekly deliveries over there, which I think would be a lovely job.
I think that would be fantastic. So what does your working day usually look like as a marketing coordinator for the library?
Yeah, it's a fascinating job. I love it so much because you're promoting one of the best resources there is. It's totally free and it's totally amazing. There's no strings attached. So it's a total joy. Every morning I come in and I check our Instagram and our Facebook and make sure I've got posts set up for all the promotions that we have coming up and all our new and latest books, get them out so people can see. I do the monthly newsletter. On any given day, fielding requests from media releases to put our library events in with council newsletters, and just generally helping the branches take some high quality photos as well. So yeah, lots and lots and lots going on behind the scenes.
Wonderful. Well, as I'm sure Adele and Phil would all agree as well, having those high quality photos on your social media and stuff really makes all the difference for capturing the audience, and providing good content is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, it's such a positive message. I really want to do it justice to absolutely know that we're there.
Definitely. Now, can you, obviously working with libraries, there must have been something in your past that really connected you with libraries, or was it, in your high school years or your primary school years or even earlier, that made you think that libraries were a great place to be?
You know what? My mum's a librarian.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so it has just always been a huge part of our life, and she got us hooked on books right from the beginning. So throughout childhood, never without a book. It was just normal. It was part of life. And so my journey has taken me through a couple of different walks in life with a background in speech pathology too. And I love that libraries are a place where you can promote that lifelong learning and communication. It's more than just books, it's engagement and it's literacy in action. And yeah, I just love that.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's a really, really good place to work. And I think that people love the fact that libraries are free. They don't have to pay. They can come along no matter which town they're in, whether they're a visitor or a local. The library's going to welcome them all the same. Now, I'd love to know, Hannah, what's happening in your kitchen at the moment? We've spoken about a bit of baking, a bit of gardening. I've got a little bit of show and tell here, but I think you've got something really special that you're going to share with us today.
I do. So I must confess, I'm not much of a cook. It's my journey with the culinary cuisine is just beginning. So recently married, and can't set me off with
Your
family cookbook, which is so nice. So she's popped in, I don't know if you can see, that's the reverse writing, but it says Grand's Special Rissoles. And so it's got all the recipes that I grew up with loving and the instructions on how to make them. And some notes in there as well about deviations from the recipe. So I'll read just a side note I've got on the rissoles one. Added tip, in quotation marks. By the way, Gran never sticks to a recipe exactly. I suspect she uses a lot more butter and seasoning, which is why it tastes so good. So I think that's going to be really, it's really special for me just at the beginning to have that, but really practically helpful. We had a mishap with curry powder the other day. We were using an American recipe and didn't realize that the strength of curry powder might be different internationally, and so ended up putting a good 8 tablespoons of curry powder in this recipe.
Oh no, Hannah, that's terrible. That's no good. Write down a note in the margin of that book saying, do not use 8 tablespoons of Australian curry powder. Oh, good. Now, we've had Edith writing to say that Redlands is a great area to visit. She loves that there's libraries on the islands as well. So she says, thank you very much. And Adele Parks, you've heard it here first, folks. She's hoping to come and visit your library one day. So watch out, Redland Library.
Yes, come on over.
Brace yourself when Adele comes over next. She might pop in, which is wonderful.
I would love that.
One of the things that I love about recipes is the way that they can just be shared so easily. And so that you have, my neighbour over the fence sends me across recipes. I will send them to my sister, who will then make the birthday cake that I've been making since I was a little girl. She's made for her son for his first birthday. And I thought today I would bring some very special yo-yos. So these little biscuits, have you had yo-yos much before, Hannah?
No, they're gorgeous. They look like melting moments.
Yes, so some people call them melting moments, and there's a slight difference in the ingredients of melting moments versus yo-yos. I think there's one tiny ingredient that's different. But these are one of my favourite little biscuits. And when the Australian Country magazine said they were going to come and do a photo shoot today, and I needed to do some baking for camera, I thought, what shall I bake? Yo-yos was the first thing I thought of. So these beautiful little things are very well loved in our house, and it's all thanks to my neighbour, Heather, just over the road. So she wins blue ribbons with them at the local show, and I've since entered them in for blue ribbon. It's worked out quite well, this lovely recipe.
Oh my goodness, can you share it?
I will. I've actually got it on my website. So, and I'm doing a giveaway this month because my new book, Paperback Hill, has just come out. And so I've got a giveaway for people that take nice photos of the book, which involves some seeds from my garden and a batch of my homemade yo-yos, which will be express posted to the lucky winner.
That's amazing.
Now, another thing I wanted to ask you is I love finding out unusual aspects of different people's jobs. So can you share something that people might not expect to find out about a librarian's job or a library marketing person's job?
Yeah, I can do both. So my background is just working in libraries as well. I think what people find surprising about my marketing job, it's a lot about setting up a good photo. So I get so many strange looks from people walking around the depot of me just doing really long half crouches to try and get the right angle and the right image. So I'm really good at squats. Which is something I was not prepared for, but is a wonderful bonus. But working in the actual library, I think people are just generally surprised that we don't sit around reading the books all day as much as we would love to. That we're on the floor doing programs, that if we don't own a book, we can request it in for free. There's just so many things that people, I think, don't know. There's so many messages to get out there.
I think that's a really wonderful one, Hannah. I wasn't aware until I guess I was a fair bit older, an adult, and had children of my own. I wasn't aware that I could ask the library to order something in and it wouldn't cost me anything. I love that about libraries.
No, yeah, I love it. Yeah, so much too. And, you know, there's a couple of restrictions that we have. Sometimes if there's an old publication, we have a lot of trouble sourcing it if it's over 5 years old. And still, we've got this network of interconnected libraries where we won't buy it, but we'll borrow it from each other. It's called reciprocal borrowing, and we'll still get it to you, and it's still free. I love it so much.
That is wonderful. Now, we've had a comment as well. Mary Lou, she's listening to Paperback Hill on Libby at the moment and loving it. Well, thank you very much, Mary Lou. That is very kind of you. I also think the wonderful thing about having the apps, Libby, to listen to your audiobooks, to read your ebooks, and to borrow your magazines. So all of the guests that we've spoken with tonight, we can borrow through the Libby app different books and magazines from Gardening Australia and also from Adele Parks. I think that's just such a lovely resource that is quite under-recommended as well. Probably there's a lot of people that don't realise that they can get those things for free on their phone or on their iPad.
Yeah, and people pay for it. They pay for the subscriptions to download these e-texts and to listen to books online, and you can get it straight from the library as well through platforms like Libby.
Absolutely. Now, we were talking earlier about a book that you recommend as well, Hannah. Can you tell us a little bit about Anita Heath's new book?
Yeah, sure. So this is Anita's latest book. She typically writes romance, historical fiction and romance, but it's got a slightly different flavour. So the title, it's River of Dreams, but it's a Wiradjuri word, and I'm going to give it a go. Bila Yadu Dangalandure, and it's the first time that we've had a text on the front of a cover that is without translation. So it features the Indigenous word, and that's it. And it's fantastic. And it's just got the Wiradjuri language woven throughout the whole text seamlessly. So it's a really good one to listen to on audio, by the way, because you can hear the language just meshing so seamlessly together. I must confess it's on my to-be-read pile and to be read urgently, but it's fantastic. It's based on true events. So the flight of Gundagai in 1852, and the opening scene is super dramatic. So it's about the river, the Murrumbidgee, that goes through the town. There was a massive flood in 1852, and it affected a lot of people's lives. And right at the beginning, there's a scene where these two Aboriginal men save about a third of the town. It's not a spoiler, it's at the beginning. Save about a third of the town over a couple of days in just 2 bark canoes. And it's a true story. They've got the statue in Gundagai to commemorate it. I love that so much.
Oh, that's fantastic. I saw it up on the screen, nominated for an ABIA award, and it didn't win the ABIA award, but it certainly was a very well-deserving finalist in the category. It's had some wonderful reviews as well, and doing such an important thing about spreading the message. So thank you for recommending that one. Now, how can people get in touch with Redland Libraries online, Hannah?
Oh, sure. So you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Redland City Council Libraries. If you type in Redland Libraries, you'll probably get us, but just check it's not an American branch, because that's not us. And then, yeah, you can pop your messages straight through those platforms and you'll probably go straight to me.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you very much for stepping in at last minute, Hannah, to be part of our Library Lovers show tonight. And a big thanks to everyone who's tuned in tonight. It's been wonderful having your company. I'm especially thanking Adele for coming on release day for her very fabulous book, One Last Secret. So do go and find that one. It's out in all good bookstores in Australia from today. Thank you very much to Phil from Gardening Australia magazine. And you can find the July issue has just gone on sale in the last couple of days. You can also download these things through the Libby app. So a big thanks from me for tuning in. I look forward to coming to you next month. I'll be talking to Benjamin Stevens about his new book, Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. This is supposed to be an absolute crack up. It's coming up very soon on my TBR pile, and I'm looking forward to it. I've also got Kirsty McKenzie from the Australian Country magazine, and I'll be speaking with Yarra City Libraries. And if you can't wait a whole month to get your fix of libraries and books and all good things about writing, then make sure you tune into Ben's Book Club, which is also hosted by Livy Overdrive. It's on June the 28th, on Tuesday. We've got Robert Lukens is Ben's very special guest on this month's episode. So you can find all these details and more through the Livy app website. They have an Eventbrite page where you can register. So many thanks to everyone for tuning in, and I can't wait to catch up with you and find out what you're reading, what you're eating, what you're baking, and what you're gardening next month. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This is Library Lovers with May Linnell and the Livy app.